Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Meter Cute interviews here on Meter and Mayhem. Today, I'll be chatting with Diane Lee Moomey, a poet and artist who co-hosts the monthly reading series Coastside Poetry in Half Moon Bay, California. Her poetry has appeared in many journals and anthologies, such as The MacGuffin, Mesocammon, and Sourdough. She's the author of many poetry collections, including the upcoming Sourdough from White Violet Press. Interested in finding out more about Diane and her work? Me too. So let's sit back, relax, and get ready to fall in love.
Sourdough, applejack, and the good vinegars that have places at our tables. For all of these treats, wild yeasts make the starter. Wild yeasts that drift on air currents and land here, land there. Then each batch may mother the one that follows. My first poem is from an earlier collection, Make for Higher Ground, and is the keynote poem for this collection, Sourdough, because it has seeded so many of the poems that came after it. 40 days. From deep within the rows of August corn, a trill, vibrato, every other living voice is still for just a breath. Entangled verge beside the field, in trees, among the ears, cicadas well concealed. Then locusts recommence their creaking, leaping, sticky feet rebound off stems of thistle, chicory and me, bare-legged, deep in milkweed. Blackbird's note. I open woody pods, set flossy seeds afloat. On porches, grandmamas weave ribbon out and in and out of eyelets, stitch and snip, pin, unpin, for owners of curly-headed dolls, yards of lace. They're fastening the ends around the tiny waists, while grandpas speak in adages, chaw, lament the fish that got away, ayup. And without a pause it's circling, as geese fly south and north again, and summer follows summer, bringing forth another incarnation of this very thistle, cricket, chicory and milkweed, ribbon, whistle of blackbird and of train, the wispy rows of corn, the grandmamas, the homilies, all circling, adorn this life. Cicada trills again from spot unknown. Ayup, it's 40 days till frost, grandpas intone. This next one is dedicated to the ones who got me through many a long, dark northeastern winter. Radio Man. Sometimes in late life West Coast sun, she thinks it was a dream, being upstairs in her room under the roof in the old farmhouse they lived in for a couple of hard winters, almost in Canada. Winters when it got dark at 5 o'clock and the snow blew into the kitchen under the front door, and one morning there was an icicle hanging from the bathroom faucet. That kind of winter. Well, in this dream, or not a dream, she's got her parents' big old Philco in her room, metallic purple with a lighted dial. And when the needle finds the perfect spot on this old Westinghouse, she can catch the radio man, his honey, smoky voice just drifting her way up from Syracuse or down from Montreal, Chicago if the weather's right, or Detroit, And he plays blues and city music just for her through this old RCA, his smoky voice regaling her with tales about the songs, the singers, their lives. Oh, their magic lives so far away from hers. But the signal drifts in and out on this old zenith. While downstairs in the den, beneath the antlered head of a deer and a stuffed pheasant, the old man would finger pick his Gibson, falsetto Hank's "Your Cheatin' Heart," and "I'm so lonesome I could cry." And on the record player beside the yellow cabbage roses that paper the parlor, the old lady would listen to Carmen, loud, glad as somebody, doing the habanera. And all that sound drifts up the stairs, so she keeps on turning up the volume, and the signal keeps drifting off and on. She keeps on tuning and turning that Panasonic pointer just a hair to the left, a hair to the right. She's just following that honey voice around the dial. Oh, just following him all around that dial. Pantoum on entering my 8th decade. An angel met me on the stairs and brushed me with one wing. One day I'll fall to meet my shadow. So much remains unwritten. She brushed me with one wing, said I mistook you for another. So much remains unwritten, and my poet soon will leave me. She mistook me for another. Once I was a changeling. My poet soon will leave me. Now I feel the change of season. I may have been a changeling. My poet left these pages. Now I feel the change of season. In this I know I'm not mistaken. My poet left these pages. Since they could all be lost, in this I know I'm not mistaken. Won't you take them with you? All pages will be lost the day I fall to meet my shadow. Won't you take them with you? For an angel's met me on the stairs. Obad. The scarlet dog of morning will sweep into the bedroom window between my first and second rounds of dreams. She'll nuzzle the pillow to see if today I'll open both eyes, push away the duvet, put my feet on the floor. She always waits for a moment or two, her lips upcurved, it could be a smile, and unperturbed. Her nose a quiver, she observes. Will I rise and dress and follow, scorning breakfast, never a swallow of coffee? This emissary of Apollo, she knows me too well. She's disappeared to cross the kitchen floor, meander toward the door. I dream I hear her toenails clicking, then she's left, continuing her crimson route west. Thank you so much.
Oh, Diane, I really, really enjoyed that so much. Thank you for reading.
Oh, oh, thank you for having me. It's lovely. Oh, oh.
Um, One of the poems that really struck me, I loved that line. I loved it so much I wrote it down. One day I'll fall to meet my shadow. Um, that line was so powerful, I think because of its lyricalness, but also really because how it's describing kind of practically what happens, the practicality of what dying and falling down would look like. And so I love that way that your work really combines sort of the lyrical, oh, we're in poetry, but also we are very grounded in the real world, right? Like we are bare-legged deep in milkweed in your poems. And I love that.
Thank
Um,
you.
what form was the Angel on the Stairs poem?
A pantoum.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I sometimes it's hard for me when I'm listening to be able to tell forms. I think because I'm so kind of rolling into the poem.
That I that was why I put it into the title, because I thought, I mean, anyone looking at it would on the page would see the repetition, but I played with a lot of different titles for this, and I thought, I think just say Pantoum on entering my eighth decade, and that's a big deal. It doesn't mean I'm 80. I mean, the 70s are our eighth decade, but it just sounds so huge. Entering my eighth decade, but yeah, that's the reality, and that's keep coming back to that and knowing the falling to meet the shadows, like and at all stages of life, that's true. I mean, people die young, but especially now at this stage of life, it's like, hey, I know I don't have a lot of active time left, and it's not a matter of just, when I die, but it's like, staying lively and active and coherent and all those things that we want to have till our dying. It's like, I'm just gonna make the absolute most of every minute, and so that kind of, the angel that met me on the stairs just keeps saying, hey, are you doing what's really, really important in this moment?
Wow. And that's such good stuff to remember for all of us. Yeah. And you can tell that I was so wrapped up in the poem before, and then when the lines started, like I wrote down some lines, but completely did not write down the title, obviously, or I wouldn't have asked the question about what the form
Okay.
was. That's
Okay.
um um right. Because I was paying attention to what was important. The poem itself, that was what was important to me in the moment. So the angel on the stairs would be okay maybe with that, with me not realizing that.
No, no, no.
So a question that I have for you, is what poet or what writer has created the most mayhem in your life?
And when I first saw that, when you first sent that to me, I thought, well, this is going to take some time to think about. But I finally did. And teeny bit of background. When I was young and in school, I wrote a lot, a lot of poetry, and it was all, I can't say it was metrical, it was accentual, Robert Louis Stevenson, The Child's Garden of Verses, and ones like that inspired me. And then in after school and in my 20s, I discovered clay sculpture, and I got into that. And that, for whatever reason, that completely eclipsed all writing. I didn't write a word during that whole time. It's like it occupied my entire creative space. Then eventually, to cut an incredibly long story very short, I lost the studio, and also I'd kind of come to the point of feeling that I had kind of done what I wanted to do in clay, and I was looking around for other things, and I discovered Barry Lopez, the nature writer who's prose writer, but his prose is very poetic, very deep, very thoughtful. And that turned me back to writing. And I started journaling and then writing stories and prose pieces and that. And I can't remember exactly when, but I also discovered the poetry of Rumi. So I would say those two together created lots of mayhem, and changed the whole course of my life back into writing. And I did do some watercolor painting, along the way, which does not seem to interfere with the poetry. Don't know why, but write, free verse, try a sonnet or two, and then a friend was taking a class in formal poetry. And I asked her to recommend something, said I'd like to try it too. So she recommended Annie's book, A Formal Feeling Comes. And as soon as I read it, I thought, I want to study with this woman. And she was like far away and, kind of out of my circle. And then I followed her on the internet. And then when the lockdown happened, I noticed that she was offering classes in what I wanted, not just generative poetry or poetry, but formal poetry. Yes, this is what I want. So then that was like, I studied with her kind of as long as she gave those classes. I studied with her. So she also was part of the mayhem, of why I am where I am right now, Yeah, so.
Yeah, and I mean the writing community during the pandemic was definitely mayhem in and of itself. Everyone trying to find a footing and how to remain connected throughout all of that.
Yes, and blessings on Zoom for stepping up to the plate. I mean, they were in existence before, but it was just a facility for businesses and educational institutions, I was told. And then they retooled really fast at the beginning of the pandemic. And then we had a way to keep in touch with groups of us, which, you can't do on the telephone very well. Conference calls are really hard to set up. But could see faces and expressions. And, what happens in the Zoom room is just as important as what happens in person. In a way, almost more so, because if it's recorded, then any foot in mouth was, oh my God, this really is real and this is going to be forever.
Right.
But, yeah.
Yeah, I think during the pandemic and since, I have become really good at being able to convert time zones. Because in doing stuff with Annie's classes, I'm in Florida on the Eastern, and there's so many people from California who were in the classes. I would have to quickly go, okay, what time is it on the other coast? Is it?
And we did have a few from Israel, India. I think Madagascar, one is from Madagascar in our classes. So it's like, okay, somebody hopefully doesn't have to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning for the class. Let's figure this out.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, so when would you say that you started writing formal work? You said you got Annie's book from a friend. When was that?
That was maybe a year or so before the pandemic, well, around 2018 or so. And until then, I had only written a few sonnets. And I thought they weren't metered, but they were actually accentual. I found out what metering really was, in Annie's classes. So yeah, I would say probably around 2016 or so, I started turning my thoughts back to that the sort of poetry that I had loved as a child. I never got much into ballads and that until deep into Annie's classes, when she would present all these different forms and then challenge us for the class to try something in each form. So I found all these oddball forms like rhyme royal and ottava rima and terza rima. I thought, well, all right, here I am. I ain't going anywhere, so why not just write this incredibly complicated 25 stanza terza rima poem? It's, it's a lot like putting puzzles together. It's like mind. It's, I don't know. My mind engages in form poetry in the same way that it engages in assembling puzzles, and I could kind of understand why some people got so much into puzzles. That because it takes your mind to a different kind of play. There's even with all its meticulosity, I know that's not a word, but it seems to take the mind to a deep calm. Like, it's hard to describe. Like,
yeah, sort of a very almost meditative place.
And once I decided on a particular form for a poem, and sometimes it's instant. Oh, this has got to be a pantoum, but other times it goes through a lot of different incarnations before I finally settle on one. But once I've decided it, and if it's one that I want to have rhymes and to be like a complex meter, I will assemble all the puzzle pieces first. I'll go through and get all the words. Say, I've got to have this word. Okay, what rhymes with it? So I go to Rhyme Zone and I copy down all the absurd sometimes word, but I copy them down anyway, just in case. And I assemble all the pieces, and then once that's assembled, I sit like putting them into place, and it feels really, really good and really calming. And hopefully, I always manage to marry the meter and the form with the meat and the meaning of the poem. That's something that only other people would probably be able to tell. I mean, like, because I'm too close to it, so I might.
I mean, I think from your work that I have read and heard, I feel like you are marrying the meat and the meter wonderfully. I mean, I think
Thank you.
I think and I'm actually kind of floored and surprised to find out that you'd only been working with meter since like 2016. That's why I asked the question, because I had always, because I think we talked about this earlier before the camera was on, that we were in one of Annie's classes together at some point. And I had always sort of viewed you as somebody who had been writing meter for years and years and years. And really, it would have been probably less than 5 years at that point when I first met you.
Well, but my childhood was full of it. My childhood and teenagerhood was full of it. And all the poetry we wrote for school had to be metered, or at least accentual, and a lot of it needed to rhyme. And also, it was in me. And I took tap dancing as a child, and I never became a very good tap dancer, and I never could do the cadences, but I watched other people do them. And it's not a metered thing like dot 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 dot, but it has its own cadences and patterns, and those they kind of get to be earworms in a way, brainworms in a way, that that it just stayed. So I think it just went dormant during the sculpture years, the years that I wasn't writing, and then it popped out again. And with Annie's influence, I was able to to bring it to a happy level pretty quickly, actually. I was surprised. So thank you, Annie, wherever you are. Maybe you're listening to this. I did dedicate sourdough to you, Annie. So, yeah.
Oh,
Mm.
um, well, I tend to post them in, I post the videos also in the Poetry Witch community stuff. So Annie will maybe see it. I'll tag her
Maybe she'll
so
see it. Yeah.
she can see.
Okay.
Um, that makes me thinking about you as a child learning to write and as a teenager, um, makes me wonder what kind of advice, if you could have a time machine and go back to some earlier version of yourself, what kind of advice would you give her?
Not that she would listen to it, because I remember her very well, but I would say, because I have a lot of body issues now that were the result of my carelessness as a child, I would say, pay attention to this body. Don't just, don't lift all that heavy stuff because you can. Pay attention to what foods make you feel bad. No, because I have tons of allergies, and like I totally ignored them, and it just influenced my whole personality then. And I look back and I think, oh man, Diane, just pay attention. Pay attention to your body. Listen to this body. Listen to what it wants to eat. And don't cram all that, all that sugar and everything else into it. But that young Diane was very, very willful and defiant, and so she probably wouldn't hear me.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think that's that is a common feeling, and hearing you say the thing about not lifting all the heavy things, just um I've recently realized that I'm hypermobile in some of my joints. And
Yes.
that, are you also
I
hypermobile?
am, I am, and I pulled them out because the little cup is not big enough to hold the ball. That's what makes them hypermobile, so they kind of slip out. And so I would just lift things. It sounds like you did too. Lift things and stress things and push. I ran on concrete in cheap Kmart tennis shoes for years. I mean, I wrecked what was left of me doing that just because I could, because there was no immediate punishment. So,
I have I have realized that like all the things I thought I could do, I was using my joints instead of my muscles to accomplish it. And when I try to explain to somebody else like what that means, I can't even, for people who don't have to deal with it, they're like, how do you even do that? I'm like, I don't know, but I'm having to teach myself how muscle actually works. Um, so yeah, I'm
Mhm.
glad to meet somebody else who struggles with that same thing, and I didn't realize that that's about the ball fitting into the joint, like into the cup. I didn't realize that that's why that all happened.
I did some reading about, I mean, there may be other reasons too, but that's what stuck in my mind, that the kind of the like a picture of this kind of incompletely shaped
Yeah.
cup.
Uh,
So anyway, oh,
it does come in handy, like when someone says, "Can you pass me or reach such and such?" and you're just like, "Gronk," like Stretch Armstrong almost. So that,
exactly. Can you help me get this out of my car? That kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
Um,
mm.
my brother also he's very hypermobile in his elbows. And so he could, like growing up, he could do all these like sort of crazy party tricks with where his elbow was. And so when my massage therapist said something to me about being hypermobile, I was like, no, I'm not. Because my only image was my brother being able to do all these things. And but no, I also am, just not in any ways that I can show off as a teenager.
You can't hire yourself out as a contortionist artist.
Right, yes.
Right, right.
So thinking still about that younger version of Diane, if she could get in a time machine and show up to see you now, what advice do you think that she would give to you?
Well, probably just you're being too careful. You're not having enough fun. But it would be from any advice she would give to me, I think, would be from that place of knowing it all, and not really realizing. Although one thing I have to say I learned very young was about mortality and how close we are. I had I was involved in an accident with my bicycle, and it, broken leg, and I was in a cast for a really long time, and I could understand then what it must be like to be very old. So that kind of that insight, I think, came early. And if young Diane saw me now, she would kind of think, oh yeah, okay, well, this is kind of what I expected. But
And then she'd probably try to get you to like drink some pop and have some ice cream or something, and you'd be like, listen, we had that conversation about sugar already.
right, start drinking again. That's what she would say. You're not drinking anymore. So,
There's so many things from when you're younger that you realize that you thought you could never get by without them, and then you realize you can. Um,
mm-hmm,
it always, yeah,
mm-hmm,
it always
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
gets me when I realize, when I make the choice that I'm like, well, I want to get up early tomorrow to be able to garden because it's gonna be 90 degrees by 11 or whatever here, then I can't stay up late. I can't, you know, we're watching Eurovision for the 4th of July this evening, and um can't drink during it or I won't be able to get up in the morning. So, yeah, I feel that.
Mm-hmm. Just remembered reading something that Georgia O'Keeffe um, said at one point, um, that she used to go out dancing every night, presumably dancing and drinking, but she didn't say so. But she gave it up because nights spent dancing meant mornings away from painting. So that was the choice that she made. I thought that kind of, at first I thought, I think because I was still back in that young thing when I first saw it, but now I totally get it. Yeah. Yeah. You make you make these deep choices in what's most important. What's most important. Yeah. So I guess another thing she would say, how am I pushing our time?
No, no, we're good.
Okay. I guess another thing she would say she wouldn't get, definitely wouldn't get, is because Mi Young was very much into self-promotion. My mother says that I said to her once that I want to be famous. I don't remember saying that, but that totally sounds like something I would have said. And I kind of put that first. I put it ahead. I didn't realize it, but I put it ahead of relationship. I put it ahead of pretty much everything else. Just sort of that pushing, when I was doing artwork, pushing the artwork out there, and I made a huge choice about 3 or 4. The lockdown started me like really rethinking things. I made a choice not to be actively engaged in selling my artwork anymore. For one thing, it's expensive. It's expensive at my level. It's not like I'm kind of world famous and I can just do whatever I want. You pay for open studios and all these things, and it's like jumping for the golden rings. And I made the decision no, to stop that. That's what my younger life had been full of, and I know young Diane would be very, very critical of where I am now. But I've put relationship first. I realized during the pandemic, I've been single for like 10 years. I haven't made room for love. I want to make room for love in my life. So that was the choice. And little by little, just recognizing all the things that I was doing that kept love away, the things, tenderizing myself. Yes, that's what I've been consciously doing, is tenderizing myself. And I would say that young Diane was not particularly tender. My former husband once referred to me as fierce. And I protested. He said, "Well, you're fierce like an eagle is fierce. It's okay." Well, all right.
Yeah. You're working to be fierce and tender at the same time.
I'm letting go of fierce because I have realized how much it alienates, how many of my behaviors alienated the ones in my world, and it's been really hard, and it's hard not to get back into a thing of beating myself up for for my past, because it's done. I can't unring the bell, but what I can do is continue making this conscious effort for however many years I have left, to tenderize myself, and whatever I do, to stay tender with it. I mean, I didn't even want to send this book out, this manuscript out, because I thought I'm going to get pulled right back into that whole sort of look at me, look at me, look at me. But I had some really deep, important conversations with some loved ones, and was encouraged that, okay, just stay right here in the heart-connected place and do whatever you can do. Don't budge from that place. Do whatever you can do. And I slowed down this whole process with sourdough. And I haven't booked a bunch of readings and doing this and that. It's like, okay, for one thing, it came out in the summer. It just came out. And I didn't want it to come out in the summer, because summer is like, oh, everybody's gone and that. But actually, it fits with the with moving slowly and smelling the roses. It's like, okay, you invited me to this podcast interview. I thought, all right, this is a gentle, tender baby step that I can do for this book, and just everything, just trying to question everything that I do. Is this how I want to be? Is this how I want to feel? And so far, it's doing well. And fortunately, this publisher, unlike many publishers that I meet the poets of, who are desperately trying to flog their book out there because the publisher is on their back, won't publish unless they get this many pre-sales or whatever. No, fortunately, this publisher is just absolute dream, and no pressure, and whatever pace I want to birth this book into the world at. She's fine with that. So that's wonderful. So
And your sourdough is through White Violet Press, the Kelsey imprint, right?
it is. It is.
Yes.
Yes.
And we're pressmates.
We are pressmates. Yes, congratulations.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, I mine will be coming out in a little bit. I've seen my proof book and we're kind of moving in that direction. So um the things that you're saying about working with them ring very true, that it does feel relaxed in certain ways, more so than what I hear from other friends at other
From
presses
other
sometimes.
publishers, right? Right. And
Yeah.
the other day, I received lovely little handwritten thank you from her.
Oh,
Thank you for the privilege of working with you on your book, Sourdough. That just so touched me. This is this is totally cool. I'm glad I did send the manuscript out.
yay. I so one of the places that my mind went when you were talking about kind of trying to stay grounded in the heart place and do what you can from there. um I wonder, because you had also we talked a little bit earlier about hypermobility, and is there a hypermobility of the soul where you can feel like you're still grounded, but really you're kind of stretching yourself out too far? Does that ever happen, or are you doing
Um,
pretty good
I
staying?
think um, that's certainly what happened in the past, and I think I have to say this, like, to give context to what I'm saying. I was fortunate or unfortunate to be born very gifted in several areas. And the downside of that is that one is expected to perform up to like 100% of what one can do, which is it's too much. It's too much. I mean, in art, in prose writing and poetry and, some other things, it's too much. But I felt like, whips were snapping behind me, because I could do this. I should do it. And I remember some people saying, oh, I'm really disappointed that you're not doing more with this gift of yours. And then I would feel all guilty, like because I was supposed to do it. And that's the biggest thing that I work on in what you were saying. Yes, there is always that tendency of even staying here in the grounded heart place. There's still, because I could reach out too far and overbalance and find myself in a place that I can't get back from, a place of like confusion or self-aggrandizement, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's like, you know what? It's a spiritual practice. It's like a yoga. It's like and a yoga, like I spent many years with the Tibetan Buddhist community. They have a thing they call guru yoga, which is the guru, ideally inner guru, but usually starting with like a person. It's like it's not just a daily commitment. It comes to be like a minute by minute commitment. It's like being in that place, staying in that place. And so it's like in the same way that, like, you do your practice, you turn the wheel of your practice. This is part of the practice, in however many years I have left, as long as I'm conscious, as I have my mind, and then this is what I want to do. This is where I want to be and where I want to stay. And so,
Well, thank you so much. I'm glad that you have chosen to spend some of your time with me doing this interview. This
oh,
has been
it's been a
absolutely
pleasure.
delightful.
So much of a pleasure. Thank you so much. No, so,
What a fun interview that was. I hope you enjoyed listening as much as I enjoyed talking. And in light of the things that Diane was saying about making sure that everything you're doing is coming from a place of the heart, and being gentle with yourself, showing yourself compassion and tenderness as much as you would to others, that seems like a good place to let you all know that from here on out, so starting in August, Meter Cute will be probably twice a month for the rest of the year. Um, and then starting in 2025, I'll only be doing one a month. Will I hold myself to that? We'll see. The first time somebody whose work I like is like, "Oh, I've got a new book coming out." You know, the first thing out of my mouth is gonna be like, "Oh, do you wanna come on Meter Cute?" Right? Like, we'll see how long I hold myself to that. But I have found that with my book coming out and with just trying to do writing still as well, and oh yeah, I have a full-time job and a husband and cats, one of which the cat is consistently ill because she digs at her belly. You can see her in some previous videos, sometimes with her cone on, sometimes without. Um, I need to make sure that I'm prioritizing other things, as fun as these videos are to do, right? Oh, they're so much fun. Uh, but I also need to make sure that I'm allowing time for other things. So, and the actual recording of the videos doesn't take hardly any time, um, and is super fun, and it's the part I love. It's the editing. Who ever thought I'd be a video editor? Certainly not me. Thanks for stopping by.